Hey, what's going on? This is Kelvin Brown. You're watching the Third Shift Report. Today, my guest is Russell Raines from St. Edward's University. He's an entertainment lawyer, and he sets up their. What do you do? You set up the program, graduate program study over there, the MBA program for digital media. So, tell everybody how you doing today.
Okay, and let me it's an MBA, you're correct, and the concentration is in digital media management. So it's a business degree, but with a concentration in the management of different types of content.
Okay. Today we're going to do a little bit of talking about entertainment law and how we're going to help establish some of the legal aspects of my company, which is Third Shift Productions, LLC. And we're going to get into a little bit of that. He's going to inform me about some legal advice about how to establish myself as an entity and professionally run and real high integrity. So basically what I want to do, I call it world domination. I'm starting a small production company. I'm the CEO, I'm the A&R, I'm the producer, I'm the artist, I'm everything. But as we were talking about earlier, I want to give myself the least amount of risk with the highest return. Greed is good. And I had an idea of when I want to work with artists, I want artists to sign contracts, for my behalf and for their behalf. And I wanted to set up song deals. I didn't want to do one song deal anymore, one song work for hire. I wanted to establish a lasting work environment and contractual thing with myself and the artist. Kind of see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And I wanted to do 3-song deals, 5-song deals, 7-song album deals, and maybe even an exclusive deal with the artist. Because as a production company, I'm trying to get the artist that's signed to me or the artist that I'm signed to, or the artist that's signed to me, signed to a major label.
Okay. Let me stop you there before I forget what you're saying and then don't answer anything. So let me start with the first part of what you were talking about and then work into what you were saying. First of all, I congratulate you for thinking about this now at the outset because that's very rare. Most of the time, most people don't think about seeking legal advice until they've stepped in it. It's too late. Mm-hmm. They come to you and put out the fire, damage control. And, you're thinking in terms of liability. Ultimately, when you're talking about creating an LLC, for example, that's a limited liability company, you're thinking about trying to create really a shield for liability. In other words, you're going to be doing work. You're going to have a lot of different scenarios that you're working. And in each one of those, you have a target on your back. You do, and especially if you start contracting with other people for whom you may be ultimately responsible under contract or tort. So once again, you have a a target on your back, and so you have to be really careful. In our society, one of the ways that you can escape personal liability is to create, form some type of recognized formal business organization, such as an LLC or a corporation. There are a lot of different, ones. And if you do everything exactly the right way, and this is not the area, for scrimping, you want to do this right, but if you do it all just right, then the government, in effect, will grant you this Frankenstein entity, which for all practical purposes is like a person, and it takes the fall, so you don't have to. So if there's a lawsuit against you doing business really as an LLC, and you lose, the LLC loses its assets, you don't lose your assets, which is why we have these. Without going too far afield, the LLC is a more or less recent creation. It basically answered the needs of people who wanted a corporation, but they wanted to manage it like a partnership. And so an LLC is pretty much recognized in most of the states now as a vehicle that allows you the protection that you would have with a corporation, but you can be a little less formal in the day-to-day operation. That's it in a nutshell, but you have to get legal advice on that. That's not something to do after glancing through a book. It's reasonably inexpensive though. Okay, now having said that, and I won't go too far down that field, but there are a lot of other choices you could pursue and look at, especially if you're going to have a series of different types of business entities that you want to more or less keep separate. And you're trying hard to, if you have a production company and a recording company and a merchandising company and a publishing company, management, some of those can actually be under the same umbrella, and that's cool, but you want to be real careful you don't do that with everything. And that's another reason you need someone, a lawyer basically, to sit down and and force you to focus, like, what are you really going to do, and what are you going to do today? You may want to do all those things, but what are you doing right now, and take it sequentially and in a way that makes sense. And ultimately, you're trying to avoid liability. You're trying to do what you do better. And even, any kind of entrepreneur with any success at all is ultimately going to be faced with these questions. And it's just the cost of doing business in this day.
Okay. How should I with all that being said, how should I go about formulating my song contracts? Because that's what I do best right now. But in the future, I would want to have a record label, I want to have a management company, I want to have, multiple streams of income through the music business. But as for right now, as for today, what is the best way that I should go about setting up my contract?
Well, of course, you're asking a lawyer. So, I mean, if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Right.
So if you ask a lawyer, what should I do? The lawyer's going to say, go see a lawyer. I mean, when you deal with contracts, you're talking about binding promises. Mm-hmm. And you're talking about more than just, I promise to do this, and maybe you'll do that. And I mean, there are complications if you don't perform and if I don't perform. And if it's sophisticated enough of a transaction where we're doing business, or we expect to do business, and money's passing, or at least our work, then you do need to have some kind of agreement. And I would definitely, I hate to say it, but at least initially you need to see an attorney and figure out, what exactly is the nature of the relationship that you're trying to memorialize. Mm-hmm. If you don't do that, then you'll be like most people who then later go to the lawyer when everything's gone bad and say, what have I done? How do I fix it? How do I limit my damages? And it's just not cost effective. It's expensive very often to see attorneys, but it's more expensive not to see them. And unfortunately, it's just the cost of doing business. Now, on the other hand, if you're in the arts, very often, and I can't speak specifically to New Orleans, but very often most major cities and counties will have organizations where they will have, it's usually accountants and attorneys, or lawyers and the accountants for the arts, or some variation of that, whereby they will have people who will give you free or almost free advice, at least while you're getting started. So I would say, go out and look for those organizations. They may or may not be available immediately. I think they probably are, especially in a city like this. It has a real established artistic environment. I'm sure there are a lot of attorneys that will work at either greatly reduced rate or perhaps pro bono for free. So don't use that as an excuse. On the other hand, I think you need to do your own work. There are plenty of great books and websites and places you can go. And I'm not saying that you should do that in lieu of legal advice, but by being educated, you reduce your legal fees. If you come to me and you hire me and I charge $250 an hour, but I have to spend 3 hours just educating you enough that you and I can even converse about it, you've just flushed away $750. Right. If you go read a book and say, look, I need a publishing agreement, and here are the issues that I see, then I'll say, okay, great, here are your options. You can do this, this, and this. What do you think? Well, I think you should do this, and here's why. Done. So, I mean, don't do it in lieu of the advice, but do it so, I mean, you will, in the long run, you'll be a better business person, and you'll function much better with whatever team you put together, ultimately accountants, lawyers, or whomever you feel is necessary.
Okay. So, for this segment, you are my lawyer.
Okay.
You are my lawyer. And I'm coming to you and I'm saying, hey, I have this artist who's really great, and I want him to be, the sole whatever to my production company. And I wanted to make sure that I can sign him. I want to exclusively produce him and his projects for the next 3 albums. Okay? How do we get that in writing?
Well, first of all, there'd be about an hour's worth of our just talking. Because a lot of times people will say producer and they really mean something slightly different. So first of all, I would try to find out what your business is exactly and what you think it is that you're trying to accomplish. And also I'd find out as much as I could about the other side, the artist, the talent that you're looking at. You and I would reach some kind of agreement once I arrive at the conclusion that we both understand what it is we're trying to do. You'd hire me, retain me, whatever. And then I would send a letter to the other person with a proposed agreement. Perhaps that might be premature. And I would hope very much that they have an attorney on the other side who can then, we can then enter into a dialogue and negotiate the deal points and be done with it. If they don't have an attorney, then I'm dealing with, someone who could be a real problem for me. I have to be very careful how I approach them if they don't have a lawyer. I can't give them any, I have to be careful in how I phrase my language so I'm not inadvertently giving them legal advice or even doing anything that could be perceived as having given them legal advice from their point of view. So from an ethical standpoint, it's very complicated. So I would predicate all of that upon just understanding you and what exactly is it your business. Why do you want to do 3 deals? Why don't you do 1 and get an option, and see how that goes? And how do you make money on the deal? And what are the deliverables? And what is your timetable? And so we would just take the thing apart and put it back together and see if it looks like what you think it is and what I think it is, and then figure out, from there, okay, what kind of a document best, realizes what you're trying to do. And there's no cookie cutter. I mean, a lot of times people think the practice of law is a form practice, and sometimes it is, but I have found, especially with the arts, it's not. Mm-hmm. And especially now, where people are wearing a lot of different hats. I mean, Rome has fallen, for the better or for the worse, and now we're kind of in this no man's land where people are wearing a lot of different hats. And you're seeing record companies that are also management companies, for example. Sanctuary Group is a pretty good example. They were just bought by Universal. And 20 years ago, that would have been just almost unheard of. I mean, there were tiny exceptions, but these were 2 completely different functions. A lot of producers are really not producers at all. They're more publishers or they're managers, and so we would really very closely examine precisely what value you bring to this and then how to best capture it. And I have found in my practice that very often it was something in the cracks, and that would be the best of all worlds. But it's it takes a while to actually kind of explore it together to come up with a document that best reflects what your deal is.
Got to interrupt you because I feel that I'm a hybrid. Like you say, a lot of people wearing a lot of hats. I feel that I wear a lot of hats. Like, there's not just one thing that I'm specialized in and I can do very well. I do a whole lot of things, well enough. So, like, I am that new, businessman because if I brought an artist to you, if you were my lawyer, I'm bringing him to my company and artistically and business-wise because he's my artist for my company, but also I'm his producer. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And I feel like in hip-hop, even on there's that line of business and music is sort of the same thing. Mm-hmm. Like, it's called like homie business, or homeboy business, but that's how people get screwed in the long run. So that's why I'm coming to you beforehand saying, laying the groundwork on the foundation, in essence, building my home on, solid ground instead of sand. I getting a good foundation, coming to you for legal advice, setting up the LLC, you know what I'm saying? All these things before I go out and get an artist that's going to be the breadwinner for my company. I'm going to turn this production company into a record label, into world domination. So that's in essence what I'm trying to say.
Okay, a couple of things stick out to me. Actually, a lot of different things. If you're going to enter into agreements, be sure you can deliver. Be sure that you are what you say you are, number one. Number two, when you start wearing a lot of hats, you're setting yourself up for a lawsuit because you have a conflict of interest. You're making money several different ways, okay? For example, in the state of California, it's unlawful to be a booking agent and an artist manager because there's such a potential for abuse in that situation. It's inherently unfair for the artist, or it can be. It just seems to be a fertile ground for conflict. So when you start saying, well, I'm a record company, I'm this, and this, are you really? Number one, I mean, do you really want to be all those things? Maybe that's not the best thing. Number two, if you are, then you're setting yourself up, and you have to be really, really careful. If you're making affirmative representations to people that I will do X, Y, and Z, if you don't do those, then you're in breach of contract, or maybe you've defrauded them. And so once again, I mean, more is not necessarily better. In fact, with an entrepreneur, unless you just happen to have an extremely exceptional situation, I would say be a producer first, or a manager, or whatever it is that you know best and what you can really work on, and the other work will come to you. It just will, if you have the expertise or if you develop it. If, on the other hand, you say that you have it, and you cast too broad a net to begin with, you're probably going to fail, number one. Number two, you're going to set yourself up for a lawsuit because they're going to say, well, wait a minute. I signed this agreement with you that your attorney crafted, and you said you're going to do this and this and this for me, and you haven't done that. Not only that, you're making money off of two or three different ways, and I'm not making a dime. And I think you're looking out for you. You're not looking out for me. And then the problem with that is that in certain settings, certain of those relationships are necessarily fiduciary relationship, which means that the law will look at you very closely to make sure that you're not benefiting at the expense of the person you represent. The courts are split on that. It's not the same in every state, every jurisdiction. It just depends. Sometimes it's a fiduciary relationship or a quasi-fiduciary relationship or a special relationship.
No, what is
well, what that means is you cannot benefit to their detriment.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, you have to look out for them, even really above your own interests. And if you're wearing 2 or 3 hats, you can't possibly be doing that.
But see, like, I wasn't casting the net like that. Why? Like, right now, I'm a production company. 5 years from now, I can grow out of that. I just want to give myself so many options that if one fails, kind of like I still have a backup. But right now, I'm a production company. 5 years from now, my success would be so great that I could have the option of turning it into a record label. But see, I've never been a person to benefit over somebody's loss. I'm always trying to look out for the other person, even sometimes more than myself. It's kind of like Achilles heel. But that's what I'm trying to do right now. It's a production company, build it on solid ground, have some success, reasonably good success, sign an artist to a major label. Okay, now since I have had this experience and I've seen how this goes, I can then turn the LLC into a corporation. I see myself right now as a lemonade stand. Like, I see myself as the first McDonald's store.
Okay.
And I'm trying then, whatever, McDonald's is all over the world.
Well, you're wise to do long-term forecasting and to have a business plan that has milestones, and that kind of gets out of the realm of what lawyers do. But that's a smart thing to think in terms of 5 years, 10 years out, what you want to do and how you're going to do it. Just an aside, a successful production company really doesn't, I don't even think you want to be a record company. It just depends on, are you really interested in the manufacturing, distributing, and the A&R aspects. And, if you're a good production company, you'll have great work. A lot of times, at least traditionally in the past, the last 20 years or so, the production companies were the tail that was wagging the dog, and that's the better place to be. You get to be in what I think is the more fun end of the music business, and
creating it.
And then let them handle the other part, and they're bleeding to death right now anyway. So you don't want to go that route, at least not in any traditional sense. And if you're a good producer, good production company, you find the talent and develop them, and you can have a production deal with the company that's so much more to your advantage. There'd be no reason really to go.
Right, like, I guess I kind of don't know yet where I want to take it, because I have the production deal. The goal of the production deal is to produce the artist and get that artist signed to a major label. That's the sole goal, to help make that artist money, provide the artist with music that's good enough to be sold somewhere else. But it's like, okay, you're doing that. Okay, why not just become the record label?
Well,
because you're selling them off. Why can't you sell them yourself?
You're selling them off because you don't want to get involved in the part of the business that's dying right now. I mean, and also that's the expensive part of the business, and it's not as much fun. I'm not saying you couldn't do that, and there are a lot of people who've set up independent labels who have done remarkably well, and it can be a lot of fun, and especially now with digital distribution. Or even using fulfillment services so you don't have to carry inventory. But from my perspective, I'd much rather just stay with the production end of it and let the record companies worry about the other. If you wanted to do that, it's at least a better environment now than it has ever been. With the possibilities that have been afforded by technology, and I mean, you can have home studios now that are unbelievably good. You can have distribution avenues that are really open to almost everyone now. They're all either equally good or equally bad.
Excuse me.
So in a sense, I mean, you could go that route. We don't even know what a record company is anymore.
Right, but I think that's the perfect time to be a record company, because like the lines are so blurred, there's really nothing that you can do that's taboo. I mean, because you're doing anything and everything possible to make money, as long as you're doing it right, by the way. But there's like, you know what I'm saying? There really are no boundaries. You know what I'm saying? But that's a lot for a lawyer. I mean, a lawyer's like live by boundaries and rules and what to do and what's not. And then you have like this record label / production company. It's like, what do I do? If I'm a lawyer, like, you know, I'd rather work percentage than work for hours. Because you spending the hours just writing contracts and if I figure out what's going on. But that's just what I want to do. We kind of got like way off track. But like bringing it back, like you said, sometimes lawyers in law, the practice of law is like a foreign practice. And like I was thinking, like if I had a contract, I had to sign a talent release to do this. Mm-hmm. You know, they're just printed up documents. Now, if I had you write this 3-song deal, 5-song deal, 7-song deal, whatever, right, one time, and just copy it, would that be cool?
It depends. I mean, assuming that everything is the same, sure. Mm-hmm. A lot of people will create licenses, for example, and with the understanding that their client's going to use them again and again. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, people are becoming more sophisticated, and a lot of times you give a form to somebody, they can say, well, no, I'm not going to sign this. Mm-hmm. Or wait a minute, I want this and not this. So, you know, the old days where people just blindly signed off on things and went to the studio, thank goodness those are finally gone. There's a good and a bad part of the music industry becoming more sophisticated. On the one hand, there's the requirement now that music always be a huge smash hit and appeal to everyone, and that's, I think, bad. But the good thing is that fewer and fewer people are getting the horrific deals of the 50s and 60s where the artists very often never made any money at all, and the managers made money or someone else. So it's kind of the trade-off, I guess. But yeah, I mean, you can have a situation, and it's not unusual for labels to have, you know, basically tiered deal arrangements that are pretty much going to be a template that they use for a new artist or a middle-level artist or someone further up. So sure, I mean, you don't have to constantly go back to an attorney and you know, reinvent the wheel, although sometimes there might be a call for that depending on the particular artist. And then sometimes that would be an argument for having a relationship with an attorney where you pay them a retainer on a monthly basis and they'll work up to X number of hours when you need them. So, I mean, there are a million different ways you can structure it. A lot of them won't charge you at all. They'll say, sure, I'll change that, because they want the goodwill. They want you to come back, and you're a good long-term, you know, client. So
that's all I want. I basically wanted to go from, you know, the dude who make beats on the street, doing for $150 a pop, to somebody that says, okay, you want production from me? Okay, well, this is how it works. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is how it works. You can work a one-time thing, 3 songs, 5 songs, okay, this is what it's for, sign it, we have an agreement, let's put the music out there. That's all I wanted to do.
Well, those are different deals that you just structured. Right. So, I mean,
I know, but
it is doable. Mm-hmm. You can have a portfolio of agreements. I hate to use that word, it sounds onerous, but you can have it set up, you know, for contingencies. And especially as a producer, there are a lot of different ways that you can make money, and there's a lot of different ways you can lose money too and spend money. So, you know, you want to be kind of careful, but it's like anything else. I would recommend you start small and see if it works. I mean, there's no reason you can't expand exponentially now, but if you come right out of the chute trying to do everything, you're going to fail and you're going to set yourself up for a lawsuit. On the other hand, you know, start out doing the one thing you do and do it well and get where you truly know the business. You know, which I think, you know, you can. The education's the most important part, but then ultimately you're out there doing it, and that'll be a little bit different. And you know, you're going to get yourself in some binds, and it's good to have a relationship with an attorney who knows you, will take your call, and that will give you, you know, help when needed. But back to my earlier comment, just thinking that you might need this puts you, you know, heads and shoulders above most people who don't think about it until they've you know, already gotten themselves in trouble.
I don't know. It's not about I think I might need it. Like, in order to achieve a certain level of success that I want, I need this. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I'd rather get it now, you know, talk to you, talk to professors or whoever, and go out and find an attorney now, than, like you said, like, put out the fire. Or, like, I'd rather have one and not need one than need one and not have one.
True.
So that's basically all I was trying to get going.
Sure.
This is Kelvin Brown. This is my guest, Russell Raines. And this has been the Third Shift Report. Tune in next week or whenever for our next segment. And to hear my music, you can check me out at myspace.com/3RD Shift Music. Thank you. Have a good day.